Hello students, hope it is good going. So the perception, you have seen that the process, it is like a computer system. Our brain also works like a computer because it needs data, input and process that happens in our brain, and then you can see the output right on our monitor, that is in the form of word communication or non-verbal communications on our face and our behavior. So that is the outcome. So in this context, you can see that the perception has certain principles, right? And there are certain principles and then factors that are affecting the perception in our day-to-day life, and then based on that, we are just forming our perceptions. So to avoid any kind of negative things in our perceptual process, it is better to look at this particular class to understand what are the principles when you just form a perception, and what are the affecting factors responsible to develop the perception in our mind. So such things we will try to learn from this model, right? So if you just look at this diagram, right, the flow chart kind of thing, right? Factors influencing perception is a number of factors operates to shape and then sometimes distort the perceptions. So these factors can decide in the perceivers, in the objects or a target being perceived, or in the context of the situations in which the perception is made. So in this way you can see that the perception, the factors in the perceiver, attitude, motivation, interest, experience and expectations, and then the factors in the situation, the time, work setting and then social setting, right? And then you can see that the factors in the target, so novelty, motion, sound, size, background, proximity and similarity. So these are the three main things that are actually affecting the perceptions. So first thing is factors in which the situation in the sense it is a time and work setting and then social setting. The factors in the perceiver, the person, personality as a whole, its attitude, motives, interests, experience, gauge or expectations. So these are the factors. And when you look at the factors in the target, right, object, so the novelty, motions, sounds and size, background and proximity and similarity, these are the certain issues influence the perception of the individual. So if you just look at the principles of perceptual organizations, so it is a figure and then ground, principle of similarity, principle of proximity, principle of continuity, principle of closure, principle of symmetry. So these are the principles, and based on that, so we just develop the perception in our mind, right? If you look at the one important thing that is there in the perception, right, the figure ground illustration, that is the tendency to distinguish or focus on stimulus that is classified as a figure as opposed to the background. So if you just look at this picture here, the background, if you just target the background, you see one thing. If you just look at the the figure, right, you will get the another object, right? So this way you can see in one picture two different things. That is the figure ground illustration. It is called figure ground illustrations, and then sometimes it happens. So then if you just look at the perceptual grouping, that our tendency to group several individual stimuli into a meaningful and then recognizable pattern. So when you look at any object or any target, so when you see something, right, so there are many things. It is very basic in nature and then largely it seems to be inborn. So you can see that some factors underlying groupings are continuity, closure, proximity and similarity. So these are the certain things determines our mind to have a kind of perceptions. If you just look at perception in the sense the perceived aspect, right? Contrast effect and projections and then stereotype. So these things, you will try to understand with examples. So I'll give you some pictures you can identify. So these pictures, whether it is a contrast effect or a projection effect or a stereotyping effect. So such things you will understand by looking at this figure. You just see this figure. This here you can see the eyes, and you can see the rocks, but in between you can just look at the various items here in this picture, right? So targeted target. You just target a particular thing that you can see the horses there, right? This is one dimension. So further, if you see this one, similarly, if so deer is there, and then if you look at the behind the trees also reflect the similar kind of the shape, right? And then in this the object, you can see that whatever you are selecting, it depends on your selections. So if you select in this picture, you can see many things, right? You can see the old women, right now you can see old gentlemen, and then you can see like a lady and something like that. You can see several items here. So here we can see this picture. It is something with a face or even letters, right? You can see in one way. If selecting one side, you can see the letters like LIAR, right? Otherwise, if you see some other part, you can see the face, eyes, nose, mouth, etc. So these are the issues. So here also you can see similarly. So it depends on your the target, which one you are targeting. So what is there here, right? So young couple or old couple. So how many people are there here? So all these things depends on your selective process. So this one also, it is like something like a waterfall or something. Some people are there with white dress. So these are all various issues. Further, here also you can see many things in this picture, right? Horses, and then people back of horse, and then the stones, and the greenish and waterfalls. Within that you can see some faces, so and so on. Then if you look at these, this effect. So when you just see this picture, the size of these the ships, right? Is it size or ships or even some wall? So what is this? So how you just select, where you select and what you see that. So it depends on your process. So then here if you see the size of these, then the size of these pictures, so which is tall, which is small. So if you just see perceptual the process, so all are same, but it seems that the last one is the taller, and then first one is smaller, but that is not the correct one. So finally, if you just look at the message for the managers. So managers are supposed to look at this perceptual the process, how the people receive various things that are there at the workplace, and then what type of perception they develop. So that is going to affect their behavior, and then in turn you can see the same thing impact on their performance also. So the perception should not affect the behavior of the individual at workplace, and then we have to see the time to time how the people are actually developing the perception about the work, about the workplace, about the organizations, and so it depends on what type of objects that we are actually creating for them to develop kind of perception in their mind. So here this is also very important concept for all of you being future managers. You have to understand the individual, the belief system, values, and then attitudes, and finally the perceptual, the process and perception of the individual, how they perceive the things, how they just develop their opinion about each and every object based on the data that they have received. It's a right or wrong. So the success or failure depends on their perception, and then the reality, how far the perception is away from the reality. If your perception is close to the reality, so your decisions are going to become successful being a manager. So that is the purpose of this particular the session, right? So looking forward again to see you in session 17, video 59. So thank you very much.